Okay, cool. So welcome to LBSA's resume and interview workshop. Going over the agenda, we're going to start with resumes, some tips for that, and then we'll go into your turn. If you haven't had a resume, this will be a great chance for you to start your resume. If you do have a resume, we're going to have our board members in breakout rooms, so I can put you in a breakout room with them so they can look over your resume and give extra tips. Yeah, and then we'll go right into interview and interview tips. And then for your turn, our lovely internal marketing director, Kevin, made a worksheet for everyone with some common interview questions. So you can all fill that out. And at the end, we'll just take any questions. But starting with resumes, what are they? It's basically a chance for you to highlight what you've accomplished and any relevant experience to that position. What it should include your contact information, especially, of course, your name and phone number, email. An objective is optional, but sometimes it does look nice on a resume. Any work experience, your education, and any relevant info like skills or volunteer experience or extracurriculars or relevant courses. Okay, we're gonna go from top to bottom. The first thing that should be on your resume is your name. And it should be your full legal name. So if you have like a nickname, or if you like my last name, I have two last names. I only really use one. For resume, I would include my second last name. You want it to be 100% matched to the application, and usually applications take your full legal name. So make sure you have that. And it should also be bolded or bigger than everything else. You want the recruiter to know whose resume they're looking at. In the example here, you can see that Sophia Martin's name is bolded and it's a little bit in a bigger font than everything else. And that just makes your name pop out a little bit better. So that's a really good tip to have. You can also have color in this, like if you want to change your name to a different color, or like the formatting in the background, making it a different color, whatever you want to do just to make that part stand out a little bit. And then including your contact info is really important so they know how to reach out to you. A good thing to include here is your email, your phone number, and your city. In the example, they have your address, like your physical address. You don't have to put that. Usually city is sufficient. And then when you're including your professional email, make sure that it is professional. I know a lot of us probably made our personal accounts when we were younger, and some of them don't have the most professional name. So having a professional email is a good option. Usually your Cal Poly email is the best option, but say if you don't want to use a Cal Poly email, that's totally fine. Or once you graduate and you don't have that email, we totally encourage you to make an email that is just your name, your full name. And another thing that was brought up by board is that if your email has any numbers, it isn't considered as professional. So say like mine would be like Valeria Waco 01 or something like that, that 01 or any numbers in it kind of take away from that professionalism. So keeping that in mind is really important. And in the city, right now, like I have two cities that I would say that I live in, one in the Bay Area and then in SLO. Just the most relevant city that you think will be like applicable for the position. Like if you want to do like a position in the Bay Area and you're from the Bay Area, use that city. Not really important, doesn't matter too much, but yeah, it's good to include. And the next thing you want to include is your education. With this, you're going to include your school, any majors or minors that you might have. And if you haven't graduated yet, which none of us have, you're going to write your expected graduation date. And when it comes to GPA, it's a little bit trickier. Some people say that you shouldn't include it if you don't have a 3.0 or 3.5 or higher. But also recruiters are going to be looking for your GPA when you're applying. So it's best not to hide the GPA. It doesn't like look like, oh, I'm trying to hide my GPA. They're going to find it anyway. So it is nice to include that on your education part. And then lastly, like I said, an objective, it's optional, and it should just highlight what you wish to accomplish, and it should be relevant to that specific job. So you can turn your resume, the same resume in for many different positions. Just make sure that if you have an objective, you're changing that constantly. Like this one, it says to obtain an entry-level position as a computer systems programmer. Say if you were trying to get a summer internship to one of the big four, you would say to obtain a summer internship with a specific company. But just make sure that you're changing it every time you're applying. So like EY doesn't get something that says KPMG on it. Continuing on, then we're going to go into experience, specifically work experience. You want to make sure that this is in chronological order. It's just easier for the recruiter to know like what the last position you held was. And then right underneath that, it'll like here, I think it says like a little brief summary of it. A good way to do this is to use bullet points and then just give like a little blurb of like what you did, like three things that you did. And using action words can make all the difference. Saying like, I demonstrated something, 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 or exhibited, or words like that. It just makes it seem like you made a difference in the company and that you like you made a difference. Yeah. And then volunteer experience. This can be separate from extracurriculars. It could be the same thing. It's also a good thing to include. Of course, it's optional. Your resume, the format, the way that you want to format it, it's completely up to you and what you think will make you look the best and make you stand out. The volunteer experience is usually pretty good to include. Extracurriculars, like saying that you're a part of LBSA or any other club that you may be, especially if you hold a position in those clubs, it's nice to show that. It shows that you have leadership skills. So yeah, that's a good thing to include. And if you do include it chronological order, again, it's just easier to see it that way. Another thing that you might want to include are your skills. Microsoft Office, if you're proficient in those, especially if you're proficient in Microsoft Office that other people aren't very proficient in, like Sheets or like Excel, all of those kind of things. Some people don't have many experience in that, so stating that you are proficient in that is good, if you are, of course. And then any languages also really good to include. And then basically any skill that you think is going to be relevant to that position. You can also include here your courses that you think are relevant to the position you're applying to. And then lastly, some people add awards and achievements. Again, only include it if it's relevant. Like, don't say like you got proficient attendance in like, I don't know, like high school. They don't really care too much. And if you have like a dean's list or something like that, you can always add like a little asterisk underneath your education to highlight, you know, I was on dean's list for this many quarters, or I did this. But if it's not like a huge award or achievement, usually you don't really need that part. Just some final tips on the resumes. Your resume should be no longer than a page. I've had many recruiters tell me that if a resume is longer than a page, they just won't read the second page. So try to condense it to the one page. It's just going to take a lot of, you know, you're going to figure out what you want and what you don't want on your resume. Yeah, use some action words. Again, you want to show the recruiter that you made a difference in each position that you were in. For those little blurbs, it should be constricted to one line. Again, recruiters, I've been told a lot that recruiters don't like to read that much when it comes to your resume. So you want to make it as easy for them to read as possible. And constricting it to one line makes it easy to read, and it helps you with that whole not passing the one page. And then you want to make it look nice. There are many options for formats, and here's just kind of a little graphic that shows the different types. The one that we kind of focused on, the one that you will see pretty like most often, is the chronological one. There's also the functional one that I've seen a few times, and that's usually when you kind of split it and highlight your skills and experience on one side, and then your skills and your education on one side, and then experience on the other. Like I said, you can use color, but make sure that it's appealing to the eye. So not like a neon or stuff or colors that are really like harsh. You don't want to use any of those. And your whole resume should not be a color. Like your main color should be white. You can just accent it with different colors. Yeah, you're your best judge on that. Just kind of see what looks nice and what doesn't. And then lastly, if you all want to scan this QR code, it will take you to a page by Career Services with some more resume guidelines. They have a little checklist for what you should include on your resume. So some good tips if you ever need to go back to refresh like what should be on your resume. But now we're going to move into your turn. If you would like to go in a breakout room with one of board members and have them look over your resume, please add it in the chat, and I will do that for you. I will put you in a breakout room with them. If you don't, we're gonna give like 10 minutes. You can just start working on it. If you don't have a resume, highly encourage you to start making one. And if at any point you want to go in a breakout room with any board member, put in the chat, and I will do that for you. But yeah, feel free to turn off your cameras as well if you want this time to work on your resume. I'll put some music too.
Do I just keep recording, right?
You can pause it.
Okay.
Hopefully that was enough time to either start your resume or work on it or fix it. Yeah, we're gonna go right back into the presentation. Jess, if you can restart recording.
Yeah, I think I'm recording already.
Cool.
Yep.
Okay. So now we're gonna go into the interview portion. So what's the purpose of an interview? It's to present yourself as the best candidate for the position and also to learn more about the position and the interviewer's organization to determine whether both are well suited for you and your career goals. I think most times we think like, oh, you're trying to make a good impression on that interviewer. You want that interviewer to think that we're a good fit, but it's also important to use this opportunity to find out if it's actually something that you want to do. I've been in interviews before where I thought, oh, you know what, actually, maybe this company isn't what I thought it was going to be or am expecting. So it's good to use it both ways. So some good tips in a lot of the questions that you're going to be asked during an interview, and you might get stuck or you not know how to respond. A good method to use is the STAR method, which is situation, task, action, result. And Board brought up that there's a new method too that's called the CAR method, which is pretty much the same thing. It's just challenge, action, result. And it's just a good way to formulate your thoughts a little bit better. So sometimes you'll be asked like describe a time, a difficult time where you've had to, how did you accomplish like this task or whatever it might be, or they might ask you like another question like name a time that you used your weakness and like turn it around, stuff like that. Even with questions like that, if you follow this method, it'll help you just formulate your ideas a little bit better and give a more solid answer. So it's something to keep in consideration when answering those questions. The next thing is ask questions. At the end of the interview, it's almost guaranteed that the interviewer is going to ask you if you have any questions for them. And the right answer is always yes. You always want to have at least a question prepared for them. Not only does it let the interviewer know that you were present, but it lets them know that you're interested. And it's a way for you to actually get to know more about the company and the recruiter itself themselves. And then something that I learned my first year that has stuck with me for all these 4 years is that you only have 7 seconds to make a first impression, so it better be a good one. You only get one first impression, so you want to make it count. So not only do you want to shine in your interview and your answers, but you should also look the part. So remember to dress to impress. You want to look presentable. If it's in person, then of course, head to toe, it should look nice. If it's on Zoom, waist up is totally fine. This doesn't just go for clothes. Like, of course, your clothes have to look nice and should be fitting to the interview. So some might be a little bit more formal, some might be business casual. But this goes with just like in general, how you look. Make sure that your hair looks nice. Doesn't look like you just roll out of bed. If you wear makeup, make sure that your makeup looks nice and that you look just presentable overall. And then if it's in person, a firm handshake is also part of that first impression. And then the next thing to be aware of is your body language. You want to be attentive, even if it's on Zoom. It's easy to tell, especially on a one-on-one Zoom call, when someone's not paying attention to you and not being attentive. So that's something to keep in consideration. The recruiter wants to know that you're interested and that you're actually listening to what they're saying. Eye contact. I saw that a survey said that 67% of that first impression comes from the eye contact that someone gives you. So even on Zoom, if you have to like pinpoint a place that might not even be their eyes, just kind of looks like you're giving eye contact, that's really important. It just lets, again, the interviewer know that you're paying attention and you're being present. Don't forget to smile. You want to show them that you're like a happy, friendly person, confidence. And yeah, confidence just goes with all of this. The being attentive, eye contact, and smiling, it just shows them that you're a confident person and someone that they want to have work for them. And then lastly, don't fidget. I know that I struggle with this a lot because I am constantly fidgeting and constantly moving, but any little fidgeting like that, it takes away from what the recruiter's attention span. So if you do have to fidget like me, if you have like a table or something, fidget underneath the table, or just don't do any fidgeting that is visible to the recruiter. Moving on. some sample questions that you can ask the recruiter when they ask, do you have any questions for me? What types of skills is a team missing that you're looking to fill with a new hire? Just, the recruiter's probably going to tell you like, oh, this is what we're looking for. And this is your opportunity to say like, oh, I actually do have those skills, or I think I could be that person. What does a typical day look like? Keeping in mind what PwC said, for those of you that were here last week, this is a question that a lot of recruiters get. So this is a good question to ask. Like it's a good question for sure. But maybe keeping that in your back pocket and asking that at the end, or replacing that question is a good thing, because recruiters, they're kind of expecting this question at this point, but still a good question. Why did you come to this company? It just allows you to get to know the recruiter a little bit better. And of course, they'll give you a better idea of the company. Same with the company culture, especially for people of color like us. Like, it's important to know that your company is going to value diversity and inclusion, and they're not like a sexist company, or just little things like that. It'll tell you a lot about the company. And this is kind of where you can find out if this company is really a company you want to be with. And then what's your favorite part about working at the company? It allows you to get to know your recruiter a little bit better. It's a way for you to connect with a recruiter. And then another tip, sorry, hold on, I think I'm in the waiting room. Give me 1 second. Okay, the last thing you want to do is you want to do your research about the company. You want to know what company you're going for, what they're all about. You shouldn't have any questions about what the company does. You should research your specific position to know what your responsibilities are and what was outlined in the application. And if possible, it's also a good idea to research your interviewer, just know, where they worked before this, what are some skills or education, things that you could connect with the recruiter is always a good thing. And then just remember to keep it lighthearted. It shouldn't just be strictly business. Remember, you want to stand out, and with so many people applying for that same position, connecting with your interviewer is something that can be really beneficial. Having that personal connection. I know that I've gone into interviews with recruiters, and they'll look at my resume and they'll see like, oh, she's in choir. So they'll ask me stuff about choir, and they'll mention like, oh, my company has clubs, and in this club, like they have like a karaoke club and stuff like that. So little things like that, it'll help you stand out a little bit better. And then at the end of the interview, after the interview is over, make sure you follow up. Email is the most professional, but like PwC was saying, a lot of recruiters are turning to LinkedIn a lot too. So whichever one you see fitting, however you connect with that recruiter is a good idea. To just send them a little email, letting them know, of course, it was nice to meet them, and then recapping that aspect that made you stand out. So for me, like I would say like, oh, it was lovely to hear about like, the clubs that your company has. And then just a little, looking forward to hearing from you, to let them know that, you are interested. Okay, so now we're going to go into the worksheet that Kevin made for everyone. Kevin, if you want to explain your worksheet a little bit.
What's up, everybody? I'm back. Can y'all see me? Okay, yeah. So if you finish this worksheet and you're able to answer every single question, I guarantee you an internship at Google, and I guarantee you'll have a house like me in the background, just so you know. Just so you know. This will guarantee you success. Not just kidding. But in my worksheet, have you been to Bosa Mesa? Have you been to Bosa Mesa, Nick? Don't try me. Don't try me. I live in an apartment. But I'm exposing I'm low income and neop. But actually though, if this question, I made like this little worksheet, it has about 18 to 19 questions, and all these questions I've gotten from like different interviews, like also part of LBSA. Like if you're able to answer some of these, at least like you don't have to be accurate, but at least somewhat have like an understanding. And like at the end of every question, at least like make it look like you overcame something. Trust me, you'll get the job, the position, and look at me, I'm in the LBSA. It works one way. And the first question, if you're able to answer this one, like trust me, it's gonna be really well. Like this is one. Ready? It's Cardi or Nikki. If you're able to answer that one, you're gonna get the job. I'm just kidding. No, but basic questions for sure are like ones that I had was like when they ask you, can you tell me about yourself? If you're able to answer the question. But usually the way that I answer this question, okay, I sound like I don't know how to talk, so why am I giving tips, right? But actually though, like the things that I do that has worked has been like giving 3 traits and how you've able to done like how you've done like projects kind of to overcome that. What am I saying? I don't know. But that one. Let me see. And then one of the bigger ones is like, what are your weaknesses? That's one that I added on the questions. But basically, use these questions, answer them in your head, write them down, and be able to answer these 18 questions, not fully, but just kind of have an idea of what they're going to ask you, and it'll kind of guide like the way that you answer the questions. Does that make sense? I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm not
Will
present.
you share that the sheet that you did?
I'm like, oh no, it's just for me. I'm getting every position. No, I'm just kidding. I'll say it right now. I'll say it right now. Oh, and I said fondo to Megan. Because I saw her drinking water and Jess too. And I was like, oh, fondo.
Yeah, so once Kevin sends that worksheet on, we only have like 3-ish more minutes. So this is really for you just to get a chance to fill it out, kind of formulate your ideas before you go into an interview. When you do an interview, it shouldn't look like you like reading something or like you memorize something, but it's just a way for you to formulate it. Like Kevin said, that first question, the tell me about yourself, it's just like a mini elevator pitch. You kind of just want to highlight all your accomplishments on there. But yes. Okay, but the gift card. Okay, cool. Yeah, there's a doc. The gift card. Karen, are you doing the giveaway?
Yeah, I am. I have all the names in so I can just share my screen and do it right now.
Cool.
Do you want me to pause or end the recording?
Yeah.
Okay.